Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsey Trione, and I am an assistant dean of students for off-campus student services at University of North Carolina, Wilmington. So my job is to help students figure out where they want to live and provide some resources. This is a recorded version of our off-campus housing workshop that we offer to incoming students as well as current UNCW students that will cover things like what to consider and how to manage your off-campus housing search or your apartment search, um, questions to ask, and then just some general resources and tidbits and factoids that should help you figure out where you want to live. So, when it comes to searching for a place to live off campus, here are just some self reflection questions that we always recommend you take some time and really think through before you dive in. So, for example, do you want to live within a mile of campus? If you want to live in walking distance of campus, that might impact your ability to get a parking permit. And so, if you want to do both, what does that look like for you? Who you want to live with. I know that this is going to be mostly transfer students watching this, but if you have friends that already are at UNCW, do you want to live with them or do you want to try and branch out and meet other people? We have also heard some stories of friends that end their friendship after living together. So, are you going to be able to live with your friend? So, just kind of thinking that through. What amenities are you interested in? And are there some amenities that if they're not available, it's just a deal breaker for you? Or are there other ones where you just feel like I'm not paying for that because that seems ridiculous? Um, and then just what new responsibilities that you are prepared for. If you live off campus, you don't have to have a meal plan. So are you prepared to cook 3 meals a day? And what does it look like for you if you are on campus all day and can't go home for lunch? So those are just some things, again, that self-reflection just to get you in the mindset as you start your search. We also want you to think about budget considerations. So, where is your income coming from? Do you have a part time job or a full time job over the summer where you're going to kind of save up to help offset the rent price? Um, are you having family members helping subsidize? Are you going to have a part time job during school to help cover rent? Are you planning on using your financial aid to pay for rent? So, a lot of our students don't realize that you can use your financial aid package to cover rent. What is important to note with that, though, is that you will not get access to those funds until after classes begin. So I have worked with a lot of students who have come to me and said, I'm planning on using financial aid so that I can pay my security deposit and that first month's rent. However, you have to pay that when you are picking up your key, which is before classes begin and before your financial aid funds are dispersed to you. So you will not have access to that money. So you need to be prepared to pay that payment on your own. And then after your disbursement of your financial aid funds, using that to pay your rent for the rest of the semester. We also recommend students save and set aside some money for emergency situations. While we never hope for an emergency, you always want to be prepared for one. There's a lot of research out there that says about $500 is the make or break point about whether or not students end up in financial hardships when it comes to emergencies. So even setting aside $500 in a savings account or something for emergencies can go a long way for college students. We do offer an off-campus housing search website. This is a screen grab of it. I will be, at the end of this presentation, doing a live walkthrough of the website. But this is what the landing page looks like. It is powered by apartments.com, and you can access the full features of it by logging in with your UNCW credentials. Once you log in, this is what the search website looks like. So you can see a lot of features on there. So you can filter out by neighborhood, price, pricing type, bed, bath, building type. There's even some more features in there. You can draw. So if there's a certain part of town that you really want to live in, you can use the draw tool to circle that area, and then it will only pull listings for that section of town. And then also it does show you the distance to campus. Now, I will tell you that this is not what is used to determine whether or not you can get a parking permit. This is completely driving directions through Google. So it is good just for your knowledge of about how far it is from campus, but just know that that is not going to be what is used to determine your parking situation on campus. There's also a roommate finder section where you can create your own profile and search through the profile of other students. And you can filter out based off of gender identity when you're looking for housing. Do you already have a place to live and are just looking for roommates, or are you looking for a roommate that maybe already has a place and they're just looking for someone to fill a room? Pets, your stance on cleanliness, so that way you don't have someone who is incredibly, incredibly clean living with someone who is not, because that will probably cause some conflicts. And then your stance when it comes to smoking and vaping inside. We do offer off-campus housing fairs. Depending on when you're watching this, we do have one scheduled for Tuesday, February 18th, 2024 during the day. So if you're watching this before then and are going to be able to make it to town, we will have at least 20, if not more, apartment complexes who are here open to renting to students. And it's a good way to kind of see all of them at once. But if you can't make it to the housing fair, that is perfectly fine. You can always work with me individually or use our housing search website just to kind of see what's out there at that moment. So now I'm going to talk about leasing and renting off campus and just some things about the Wilmington market that you might want to know. So within the city of Wilmington, we see two types of leases. The first is what's called your shared lease, or what I like to consider like your more traditional. It's what most people think of when they're thinking about a lease. And so a shared lease is when all of the residents are on one lease agreement together and they're all equally responsible for that. A shared lease typically only covers your rent in that price. And the whole group, like I said, is responsible. So if a roommate moves out or doesn't pay their portion, the entire group has to figure out how to address that situation. So if Sally is short on her rent by $150, you and the rest of your roommates have to figure out how to come up with that $150, because at the end of the day, your property manager or your landlord isn't going to care that it was Susie's fault. They just know that they're not getting their full rent payment. Individual leases, on the other hand, we see in our student-focused apartment complexes. And for those, it is each individual is signing their individual lease agreement with the property management company. With these leases, that price that you're seeing includes your rent as well as utilities, cable, internet, that kind of stuff. What's nice about it is that you are only responsible for your portion. So if Susie is short $150 that month, that does not impact you. That is her own problem. Um, if your roommate moves out, you're not responsible for that either. So that is something that is kind of a nice thing, is that it gives you that independence, but you're not having to rely on other individuals in order to make your payments every month. I also like it because, especially for students where maybe you're living on your own for the first time, having an individual lease, you are only paying one payment a month. You just have to make sure that you're doing that one payment every month and you're good. Whereas with a shared lease or your traditional lease, you're having to pay your rent and then all of your different utility bills. For individual leases too, a lot of those apartment complexes will do their own internal roommate matching. So you can go in and just sign your own lease, and they'll typically have you fill out some sort of like profile with them. And then they'll look at others who are in the same situation as you and pair you up. So that is something, if you're struggling to find a roommate, you can do that individual lease and they'll find someone to live with you. Either way, whether it's a shared lease or an individual lease, make sure that you're having an honest conversation with your roommates ahead of time. For shared leases, because there's going to be a lot of shared expenses, you're going to want to make sure that you are all on the same page on how you want to live together, how you want to pay those bills, what's that best avenue. But even for the individual leases, you are going to be sharing a common space or common areas with your roommates. And so what are the expectations around doing the dishes, cleaning up after yourself, noise, that kind of thing? We find that it's really important to have those conversations before you move in so that if things were to arise, you have already addressed it and you just have to reaffirm what you've already decided versus trying to establish rules and kind of roommate agreements as you're going through it. So before you go and look at any apartment, these are some things or before you sign any lease, this is kind of the stuff that we recommend. So these are some questions that we recommend that you ask, like when is the rent due? How long is the lease? Because we do have some places that might offer a 10 or a 12-month lease. Some may offer something a little bit more short term, like a 6 month or even a semester long one. And then we've also seen students sign 18-month long leases. So really, you need to ask, how long are you willing to sign a lease for, and what are they offering? How much is your security deposit? How is maintenance handled, etc. Things to look into. We encourage that you ask to see the lease before you visit, and they will provide that for you if you ask. And that gives you a chance to kind of look over the document, notate any questions that you have, so that when you do your visit, you can ask it of them in that moment, rather than like you're ready to move in and you're looking at the lease, and now all of a sudden you have all of these questions. And that way you can use that information to help you figure out, do you actually want to live there? Is there something in the lease that is really concerning to you that might determine whether or not you trust that property manager? You want to make sure that the space meets all of your needs. So if you really do not want to be on the first floor, making sure that they have second floor apartments available. You want to check the building quality. So we are in an area that is prone to hurricanes, and we have some apartments that are brand new and they do a great job with their maintenance. And then we have some others that are probably just really good with a paintbrush, and need some love. So checking the quality and is it something that you are comfortable with? You can also use that opportunity to check the security. Is the landscaping in a way that you can see out windows and people can't hide behind a bush? Is there a gate at the property? What are the locks look like for the individual units? Is there a lock on your door if you want to have that? Um, I also recommend, just if you can't visit at night, taking a look at where the lights are in the parking lot. Is it a place that you're going to feel comfortable if you have to walk from your car or through the parking lot at night? And then the last tip, that I always, always, always recommend, check your cell phone service. Again, we are a town that is prone to hurricanes, and I've had so many students that have picked a place where they don't get the best signal, but they're like, you know what, it's okay because when I'm home, I'm going to use the Wi-Fi to kind of boost everything. I can do phone calls and text messages and stuff via Wi-Fi. But when the power's out, the Wi-Fi is out. So how are you gonna be able to communicate with your family or friends to let them know that you're okay? Or if there's an emergency situation when the power is out, you're gonna wanna make sure that you are in a place where you can get information out to people via your phone, without the usage of Wi-Fi. So lease language, like I said, we always encourage that you ask to see the lease before you visit, but you also want to read that over with another trusted person that maybe understands the lease. That could be a parent, that could be a family friend, an older sibling, an uncle or an aunt that you trust, just someone else to be that other set of eyes, especially if you've never looked at a lease before. You're going to want to make sure that you fully understand what you are looking at. Again, ask your landlord questions if you're confused about anything. I think a lot of our students are afraid to ask questions of landlords, thinking that it will make the landlord feel like they're being too much. But at the end of the day, they're going to want to make sure that you fully understand the contract too, so that there are less likely to be issues later on. The University Student Government Association does offer an attorney who can do lease consultations. If you are not currently enrolled, I am not sure if you can use that feature, but you can always use it after classes start if something were to arise, where you're not sure about something. So, another thing that we see in leases are what are called addendums or amendments to your lease. So the state of North Carolina has a pretty standard rental agreement, and then the complexes and property managers will go in and make addendums that fit their needs. So it's some things that we see are, do you have a good credit score? Do you have to have a guarantor that has a good credit score? Especially for those apartments where we see your utilities are included, they may have a requirement of where you can set your thermostat so that you're not raising that heat, or that electric bill too much. You're also going to see things for like breaks, maybe you have to keep the thermostat between 55 and 65 degrees to prevent pipes from freezing up. You're going to see an addendum typically in there is that if you have a pet, there is a pet fee, and then there's pet rent, whether or not you need to include or obtain rental insurance, and we'll cover that in a little bit too. Some things that we just want people to be aware of is that it is not uncommon for some complexes to have an addendum that says that they have the right to add services after the fact. One that we saw not too long ago was valet trash service was added. So when students signed their leases, valet trash service was not available. But the property management company decided to add valet trash service, which is great. I mean, if you don't like taking your trash out to the dumpster, especially at night, you can just put your trash bag outside and someone will come and pick it up and put it in the dumpster for you. The thing is that there was a fee associated with that, and the property management company used the addendum that they have the ability to add services to require students to now pay the fee for the valet trash service. So that's something that you're just gonna wanna check to see if there's something like that in the lease before you sign, and, like, what does that look like, or what are things that they could be adding? You don't want something where all of a sudden they're adding a ton of these extra fees, and now you are beyond your means in living in that place. So when it comes to signing a lease, we always say, "Be careful, this is a legally binding contract." It is enforceable, and so making sure that you fully understand it before you sign that dotted line is important. Also, make sure that you know that if you are signing a lease, you are agreeing to live there. There's a difference between signing an application versus signing a lease. But we have had students that have signed a lease with a group of friends and then decided, I'm not really getting along with them anymore. I want to live somewhere else. And then they sign a second lease and they can't get out of the first one. And now they're on the hook for two. So you're going to want to make sure that you're only signing one lease and that once you sign that lease, that's it. And then also, because again, I know that this recording is going to be for some of our transfer students. If you sign a contract to live on campus, and so that is signing the housing agreement with the university and paying that deposit, you're living on campus. Do not go and sign a lease with an apartment complex off campus because now, again, you are signing two contracts of where you're going to live. If you are ever unsure of where you are in the on-campus housing process, we recommend reaching out to Housing and Residence Life, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you, hey, you already got a housing agreement on file. We're going to hold you to that. And then just don't sign a lease with an apartment complex. This is a general timeline of when students should start searching for apartments. I always say start researching now. It is never too early or too late to start your research. You're going to want to make sure that you've done that self-reflective reflection questions that I mentioned at the beginning, figuring out what amenities that you're looking for, and just starting that research right now. The timeline for this market is that in January, we typically see that properties are reviewing any wait lists and will start signing leases with students that have already indicated that they want to live there as early as January. Late February and March is when the properties really start ramping up their recruitment of new tenants, and we see most lease signing happening between April and May for the next academic year, with move-in being in August. Now, I'm saying this knowing that we definitely have students that are signing leases as late July and they're moving in 2 weeks. So there is housing available all throughout the summer if you are willing to find a place or if you are looking for a place. I cannot guarantee the price of the availability or the location. So we do have some complexes that are incredibly desirable and are incredibly competitive to get into. And so for those ones, it might be that by May, they're full, and they don't have anything available, or they have only a few units available and the rental price has now increased. So you can find housing, like I said, in the summer and be perfectly fine. It might not just be exactly where you wanted it to be or the price point that you wanted. Subleasing is something else that we see a lot at UNCW. We have a large number of students that decide to study abroad for either the fall or spring semester who probably already have a lease in place and need someone to sublet or take over that lease for them. And so that is a sublet is essentially where the tenant leases out their place to another tenant. You're going to want to make sure if you are someone that's about to sign a sublease, does the property management company actually allow it? Some of them do not allow subleasing. Some of them do, but require additional documentation from you so that they can do their own security and background check for safety reasons before they just let someone come move in. Sublets are allowed to be posted on our off-campus housing search website. So if you are, I only want to find a sublease for one semester and then figure it out, or maybe you're starting in the summer and you want to sublease for the summer and then move into somewhere else. There are a lot of options available on our website for there. Some common renting terms that we see students come to us with questions about. One is what's called a broker or a finder's fee. That is if you are engaging a real estate agent or a realtor to help you find an apartment or somewhere to live. Typically, the property management company or the landlord would cover the broker or finder's fee as kind of a thank you for bringing us business, but not always. So if you do end up engaging a real estate agent to help you find an apartment, make sure you know ahead of time who is going to be responsible for paying that fee. First and last month's rent, that is quite literally the first month's rent of you living in that apartment and the last month's rent of you living in that apartment. And typically that's going to be due when you move in order to pick up your keys. With the last month's rent, one thing that I always try to stress to students is keeping in mind that that is truly the last month that you are living in that apartment. So we've seen students that will sign a 12-month lease, pay their first and last month's rent, and then decide to renew their lease and live there for another year. Your last month's rent will get pushed until the last month that you are living before you move out. And so some students are like, that's okay because month 12, I don't have to pay rent. And then I start, paying again at the beginning of like my new lease. That's not how it works. You have to pay that last month's rent. It is quite literally the last month's rent payment before you move out. That's what you are paying. A security deposit, that is money that you will pay to the property management company or the landlord that will be held in trust throughout the entire time of your tenancy. And then after you move out, they will take a walkthrough of the unit to determine if there are any damages, and they will take the money from your deposit to pay for those damages. And then if there's anything left over, they will pay you back the rest. And then utilities, that is basically your water, electric, cable, internet type bills that you see. We do see students that do rent single family homes around campus, but keep in mind that there are more things to consider. So in Wilmington, it's only 3 unrelated people can live together. Wrightsville Beach, it can be up to 4. Typically, with a single family home rental, there is going to be additional upkeep. So we do see a lot of addendums in there about you have to maintain the landscaping. So you're responsible for the mowing and the weeding and the keeping the bushes cut back. You'll typically be responsible for setting up your trash and recycling service, and that's going to be another bill that you and your roommates have to figure out how to navigate. But then also with single family homes, it's always just important to remember to be a good neighbor. With the neighborhood surrounding campus, it is a mix of college students as well as young professionals and older retirees. So not everyone living immediately around campus is living the college student lifestyle, or the hours that our students live. And so just remembering to be a good neighbor and be courteous of those around you because they might not be going to UNCW. Renters insurance, this is something that we typically see as an addendum, as I mentioned earlier, where you'd be required to obtain renters insurance to live at a property. We encourage you to get it, even if it's not required, just because it protects your personal property. So the landlord or the homeowner or whoever will have what's called landlord insurance, and that only covers the building structure as well as any appliances that are in the unit. It does not cover your personal property. So for example, again, hurricane prone, if a tree were to fall on the roof of your building and water gets in, the landlord's insurance will fix the roof and will fix the damage to the walls and to the floors. If your clothing or any of your furniture or your electronics get damaged because of the water coming in, the landlord's insurance will not cover you. Your renter's insurance will. So that covers your personal property. So you can find renter's insurance a couple different ways. If your parents are homeowners, you might be able to get that added to their homeowner's policy or be covered under their homeowner's policy. But a lot of the major insurance companies out there will also provide a renter's insurance policy for a relatively low price. One thing that we do stress to students when it comes to renters insurance is that some apartment complexes will say for an additional $15, we'll take care of your renters insurance and we'll take care of a policy for you. We actually discourage students from doing that because a lot of the times what we have found is that the students are not provided who the policyholder is, like what company has the policy, how to file a claim, and if you wanna file a claim, you have to go through the property manager, which if you need to file a claim because a pipe burst due to poor maintenance, they might not be willing to give you that information to file a claim on your damages because it's most likely part of their overall policy. And they're not gonna want you to file a claim because that's gonna raise their insurance rates. So we always encourage just go out on your own and get it. Do not sign up or take the renter's insurance policy that is through your property management company. Repairs and damages. So security deposits, I mentioned that before. You will be required to pay that when you sign your lease, and then when you move out, the cost of repairs will be deducted from the security deposit. We encourage you to record any damages prior to move-in. So a lot of times when you move in, they'll give you a document to document any damages that you can turn in. We say in addition to that, take photos and videos that clearly show the damages and then email that to the landlord or the property management company. That way you have a timestamp communication that shows that you notified them of that damage and then save those photos and videos in a folder that you can refer back to when it's move out time. We have seen sometimes, and I don't think this is done with malicious intent, but say there is like a scuff or something on a wall when a tenant moves in, and then the property manager, when the tenant moves out, says, "Hey, there's damage to the wall," and they just never repaired it. They didn't notify or realize that you didn't do it. It was from the previous tenant. So just making sure that you do that documentation. For maintenance, make sure you know how your landlord prefers for you to submit maintenance requests. Sometimes they might have a portal for you to go in and submit those requests, which you can then get the timestamp of when you submitted the request in there. If you're at a more mom and pop type of place, it might be that you're supposed to call or text someone, but just keep in mind too, if it's like a mom and pop place, the text messages after hours, they might not respond to right away. Um, so really asking how is maintenance handled and how do we put in requests and what is the best method if it's an emergency versus just a general maintenance request. Um, if they prefer that you do things over a phone call, we always recommend that you still follow up via emails, again, for that documentation purposes, so that you have some sort of thing in writing with a timestamp on it that says that you contacted them or notified them about this issue. And then lastly, just make sure that you're giving your landlord a reasonable opportunity to respond, especially at move-in when we have a lot of students moving into complexes all at once. They are getting a ton of maintenance requests of things that maybe just didn't get caught or didn't get finished before move-in from the previous tenants. And so things like the air filter needs to be replaced is probably not going to be as high priority for the property manager upon move-in as, say, the previous tenants left a hole in a wall. So just kind of keep that in mind. Reasonable amount of time, not necessarily ignored. That there's a difference there. Utilities. So again, if you are in an individual lease, most likely your utilities are going to be included in your rental price. But if not, you're going to need to figure out how to set up and pay for utilities and how you work with your roommates on that. So before moving in, you might see something like a turn-on fee, or that might be waived if you have a good credit score. You're going to want to figure out with your roommates who is signing up for each utility, and then how you're going to pay each other for that, to make sure that they're covered. What utilities have to be activated versus which bills are just transferred over to you. And then again, how those costs are going to be split. If everything is in one person's name and everyone just pays them for their portion of the utilities that month, or is it each person is responsible for one utility and then you guys kind of work out the finances your own way? So when it comes to living off campus, we always like to remind students that um, while we do have university police, things that happen in the off-campus apartment complexes are not handled by university police, they're handled by Wilmington police. And so when Wilmington police gets involved, it is going to be much different than working with our UPD officers here. We do have a good relationship with Wilmington Police. So for those single family homes, noise citations, we do get notified about that. We also do work with code enforcement about some issues off campus as well. So just because it's happening off campus doesn't mean that the university won't find out and might follow up with you as well, depending on the severity of the issue. Now, we did mention earlier, part of living off campus is figuring out, are you going to cook for yourself and how that's going to work? I did want to plug that the university does offer meal plans for students. Um, and so these are three that we see most frequently. I can't guarantee the prices right now, depending on when you're watching this recording, the prices might have changed for the next academic year. Um, but these are three meal plans that we see a lot of commuter students or off-campus students use. And that way, maybe during the semester, if you have days where you're just on campus all day and you just need to be able to stop somewhere quickly to get food, maybe having dining hall swipes or teal meals or food dollars is something that would be interesting or desirable. So you don't have to bring like a lunchbox. I will say, microwaves on campus are few and far between. So if you are going to be bringing a lunch, a hot lunch might not be your best option. And so that's why maybe these meal plans would be um, more beneficial cost-wise than constantly buying stuff from Hawk's Nest every day. And then again, just the questions that you want to ask about, do you enjoy cooking? Or is it a chore? Do you know how to cook? Do you have time for grocery shopping? And maybe a meal plan is something that is desirable for you. Our sustainability office also offers a program called Dub's Grocery Run. I highly encourage, once you get to campus, maybe checking it out. It's called Ride the Red, and what it is a workshop that they offer where they walk you through some of the local grocery store um, savings programs. So like your Harris Teeter Vic card or your Lowe's card, because those are the two grocery stores that are near campus. So they'll walk you through like how to save money and shop for bargains, how to get the most out of your shopping list, how to organize your shopping list in a way that avoids you from just going through the aisles where you're probably more likely to pick up things that you don't need. And then that bill shoots up. And it's called Ride the Red because at the end of the program, they will ride the UNCW shuttle, the Red Line, to Harris Teeter. So we do have one of our on-campus shuttles that can take people to a local grocery store in town. And that's great, especially if maybe you're living in walking distance to campus, but you don't have a car. You can use the shuttle system to get to the grocery store without a vehicle. Parking options. So I did mention something earlier about the 1 mile radius. So students who live in the 1 mile radius that is set by parking services cannot purchase a daytime parking permit, but you can purchase what's called a night and weekend pass. So the night and weekend pass, you cannot park on campus during the week between 7:30 a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. After 5 o'clock, you can park on campus, and on the weekends, you can park on campus as well. That 1 mile radius is set by the university. It is not determined by Google Maps. So having the Google Maps directions from your complex to campus is not what we'll say. And it says that you're outside the mile. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're outside the mile. For students who can purchase a parking permit, there are three kind of commuter levels available. What's called Zone 1 is that hot pink magenta along the side of the map. Zone 2 is the dark blue at the bottom corner. And then Zone 3 is our park and ride, which is not shown on here. It is actually a parking lot across South College Road, and then there is a shuttle that will take students from the park and ride to campus as well. This QR code will take you to the parking services website so you can see what the current prices for the passes are. And there is also a 1 mile radius map. Their shuttle map has the 1 mile radius on it so you can see if your apartment complex is on there or not. So I did mention that we have a shuttle system. It is through the university, but in partnership with Wave Transit, which does all of the city buses for the city of Wilmington. And so what's great about that is with your UNCW One card, you can ride any Wave Transit bus for free. We also have what's called the Translock app, and so you can use that app to track any of the shuttles for UNCW. So if you do have to use the shuttle to get to campus, you can kind of see if it's on its way and run your way out to that bus stop to make sure that you make it so that you can get to class on time. We also offer a point-to-point shuttle for after hours, but then keep in mind that the shuttles only operate while class is in session and they do not operate over the summer sessions. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about being a good neighbor. Again, we do have a lot of students that decide to rent in single-family homes off campus. And so basic neighbor etiquette can go a long way. Even if you're in an apartment, just going over and introducing yourselves and passing along your phone number to say, hey, if anything happens or we're bothering you, just shoot us a text message and we can address it. And that way you can get ahead of it before it gets escalated to maybe the police having to get involved or your property manager getting involved. Um, the city of Wilmington does have noise and trash ordinances that students do need to follow. Again, we do get the copies of those noise citations, and we're actually seeing more and more of them coming from apartment complexes and not just single family homes. So making sure that you're aware of the noise ordinance, overnight, it's 55 decibels, which is not very loud. It's about the volume of a vacuum cleaner. So a lot of the times our students don't realize that what they think is quiet is not quiet per the ordinance. And so making sure that you're just being aware of that and not being a public nuisance. Safety and school breaks. We do have a lot of students that walk or bike to campus, and so making sure that you know pedestrian and bicycle safety. So pedestrians need to be on sidewalks and cross at designated crosswalks. We do have a major intersection at the corner of campus between South College Road and Randall Drive. That has a crosswalk with a crossing signal there. A lot of our students use it, and we strongly encourage our students to use it. And then also bicycle safety, about whether or not you can or cannot ride on the sidewalks. You can't, but you can use the crosswalks to cross the street. We do offer what's called a tenant education program. And that is for, it's a Canvas course online. You can take it. A lot of the information that I covered here is in that program, but it is in more in depth. And so that's a great way if you just want to kind of brush up on this, or if you want something to refer back to, you can get to the tenant education program through our website. So I do want to just plug, obviously I'm not gonna be able to ask any or answer any questions, but you can always schedule an appointment with me, if you have any questions. And you can also email us at offcampus_students@uncw.edu. And then the offcampus housing.uncw.edu is the housing search website, as well as our office phone number. All right, so I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, and so here is what that off-campus housing search website looks like. This is the live view as of the day of this recording, which is early December of 2024. But again, it is partnered by apartments.com. We do have some announcements that are down here at the bottom, that I will highlight in a little bit. But you will sign in using your UNCW credentials. Parents can create a guest account, that is good for about 3 months, so that they can help their student use the search if they need to. But if you view rentals, once it loads, so this is what it currently looks like on our website. And so again, these features up here, I do want to highlight. So pricing type, we talked about the individual versus the shared lease. Per bedroom, per unit, that's how you can sort that out. So if you only want to look at per bedroom apartments, there you go. Again, you can see a lot of them are in the immediate vicinity of campus. Under more, if you are looking for a sublease, you can use this lease information of if you want a 12-month lease, a semester lease, a fall or winter sublet, or even a 2-year lease. We got one of those on here right now. Distance to campus, as well as some other features as well. And again, that draw tool. So if you only want to look, say like right around here, it'll only pull the listings for that area. So if you look over here, you're going to see some of our complexes or some of our listings, and you're going to see these star reviews. So if you were to click on, say, I'm going to click on this one. We do, because this is powered by apartments.com, it will pull their apartments.com reviews over to our website. So if you were to click on a listing like this and you scroll all the way to the bottom, there are the reviews, and you can sort by most recent, high or low. And then you can see sometimes the property managers do respond to those reviews. And you can see where they pulled the review from. Other things on here is if they have any kind of specials or deal, that will be right here underneath their pictures. Depending on the apartment complex, they might have virtual tours available or only photos. You're gonna see their rental price here with a broad range, and a lot of that is because, again, the rental price may vary week to week depending on what's going on in the market or their inventory, so just kind of keeping that in mind. We do have the roommate search, so if you click roommates here at the top, you can see, here are some current profiles that we have. You can add one yourself, and then sort out and filter based off of what you're looking for in a roommate as well. Now going back to our landing page here, the first announcement is specifically about the 1 mile radius. And so if you click on that announcement, it'll take you to the policy page for parking about the 1 mile radius rule. If you have a question about whether or not it's within the 1 mile radius, you can always call or email, or you can view the campus shuttle map, which has all of the shuttles along with the circle that is the 1 mile radius. Now, I will say that we do have some apartment complexes that may have changed names recently. And so I know Candlewick, for example, is not currently Candlewick, it is something else. But you can at least get the idea of the vicinity of like, oh, I'm looking over here on South Kerr. That's probably the apartment complex that I'm looking at. And you can see also the shuttles and the shuttle stops that service those complexes, which is incredibly helpful. So for example, Aspire 349 and Progress 910 are two very popular apartment complexes that we see. Aspire 349 is inside the 1 mile radius. Progress 910 is outside the 1 mile radius. However, they are both serviced by 2 stops and 2 routes because of the number of students that live there. And so we do have some Progress 910 students that use the shuttle to get to and from campus, even though they can get a parking permit. And then you can see the park and ride shelter that I had mentioned earlier is right over here across from campus. So that is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, again, earlier in the video, I showed you our contact information. I'm always here to help, as well as the rest of the Office of the Dean of Students. Thank you so much.